Hello and welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm so excited you're joining me today. Today I have a very special guest in the studio. Her name is Michal Carnahan. She is the daughter of another lady that I interviewed in the past, Leslie Wilson, who ran the boarding house or currently runs the boarding house here in Moscow, Idaho. So she has a lot to share from her many years of working with her mom. She is currently married with 4 stepkids who are in their preteen and teen years, so it's a very fun time at her house. She is a jazz and soul vocalist who has worked in Portland for about 14 years before getting married, and now she, of course, spends a lot of time with her family, but still gives voice lessons and still performs. Welcome, Michal.
Why, thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit more about yourself. I gave some real quick talking points, but fill it in. Tell us a little bit more about you.
Well, I've been back in Moscow, Idaho. So this is my hometown. And I've been back here since 2021 when I was engaged. We were long distance dating and got married May of 2021. Moved into being a stepmom to 4 kids, which was quite the change from my single life in Portland for many years. I was 37 when we got married and I'd never been married before. And yeah, it was quite the transition.
Did you have to step up your cooking game?
Yeah. I had to step it up and change it, to like, my audience is different.
Have a refined palate that wants a 5-course gourmet meal.
Right. So yeah, actually I have a story about that, which I could launch into now, but about one of the first meals I cooked for Ben and the kids. And
okay, tell us.
You want me to tell you now? Okay.
This sounds good.
I think it was when we were dating and I had come into town. I think it was like right when I had moved to Moscow. Anyways, I was going to cook dinner for Ben and the kids. And I thought, okay, well, what am I going to cook? And I just asked Ben, what's one of your favorite? And he said, I really like lasagna. I said, oh, okay, great. My mother has a great lasagna recipe. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to knock it out of the park. I'm going to so impress him, of course, and the kids. They're just going to be just floored by this amazing lasagna because I know what I'm doing in the kitchen. And that confidence, got quickly shattered. The lasagna turned out great, but watching the reactions of the kids at the table, Ben loved it. Thank God. But
you might have melted in a pool of tears.
But I'm watching the kids as they're like scanning the cheese and like, what's this tiny green fleck, in the middle of the cheese? It's like the parsley,
Right.
And they're not excited about it. They're not saying like ew or anything, but I'm imagining the dream world, being Maria von Trapp and having all the kids be so, oh my gosh, wow.
You're so amazing.
And I was trying to hold it together during the dinner. And then afterwards I talked to Ben. I said, what happened? Why didn't they? I thought that they were going to love it. How did they not love it? It's cheese and pasta
cheese, noodles,
and meat. But it's the questionable textures and the whatever.
So
and he said, welcome.
Dishes.
Yeah, he said, welcome to cooking for kids. Like,
no rhyme or reason.
Right. And he's like, don't worry about it. Don't let it ruffle your feathers. Just.
Yes. And their palates change and their palates mature and they begin to like more adult foods as they grow up.
And so I had to be humbled to having a different type of audience. But anyways.
And what's funny when you have 4 or 5 or just a group of children, it's really funny growing up and I would forget who liked what. I mean, I generally would remember, but sometimes I'd be like, what? My kids, some of them would love something and they request it. They are just so excited when I make it. And another kid would be like, you made such and such, and barely eating it. And
yes.
Just wasn't their favorite. Wasn't the texture wasn't there. But what would be funny is then that kid would have their favorite and the other kid would be like,
Oh, why, Mom? Why'd you do this?
You can't win when you have, sometimes.
No.
Sometimes you can win. Sometimes you knock it out of the park.
I love finding that one recipe that all of them like.
Yes.
And I go, oh my gosh, I will never forget this. And then I make it again, and then somebody decides they don't like it.
Somebody's mind has changed.
Somebody's, yes.
Thankfully, as they grow up, there's less and less of that.
That's right.
I know when my kids were younger, we would have, I remember my oldest son. It was so funny. I may have told this on here before, but his grandmother grew squash. I mean, in the garden, just the most amazing vegetables.
Yeah.
She grew this amazing squash. So it was like candy when you roasted it in the oven.
Oh.
And he just turned his little nose up at it.
You don't like candy?
It's like, you will eat that squash. You're going to at least take 2 bites.
Yep.
Every time we have squash. And that summer we had a lot of squash.
Right.
And so he had to have his 2 bites. And then what I noticed is very quickly after the 2 bites, every single time, all of a sudden he loved squash. It's like took a bit of time for his palate to adapt, I guess. I don't know. I'm sure there's scientific studies about
probably
how many days or how long it takes in order for a new taste to be liked by a child.
Yes.
But for him, it was just like a week or 2. It was and then all of a sudden, it's like one of his favorite foods. So
yeah,
it was
that's so interesting.
Just a light bulb moment as a mom.
Yeah.
Way back when. So tell me a little bit about the hospitality you do. I did mention earlier that you grew up in a boarding house and you fed a lot of people. And so I'm sure that your experience started there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So growing up, my mother was cooking dinner 5 nights a week for all the people in our boarding house and us kids. And I have 3 brothers. So we'd have a pretty normal dinner size, was like 16 people at dinner. And that meant that I had to be in the kitchen early, learning how to help my mom and cutting up the vegetables or, just doing all the things, setting the table, getting things where they need to be. So just kind of getting used to not only learning what it means to make something taste amazing, but how do you get a meal out on time? Because we have college students, like 6 o'clock dinner time. Everybody has different schedules. We say 6 o'clock, and you have to get all these different components done. And that takes some doing. And
it does, because you can't have your main dish ready and your vegetables raw,
right,
or vice versa.
Right. So just she taught me a lot about just the practicality of serving a lot of people and how to do that, and just all the skills that you need to learn how to cook and host people and make them feel like they're at home. And the guests that would come in, because we'd have the people that live there, but we'd also have guests on top of that often. So engaging people with conversation that are just moving in, or people that are just there for dinner that night, trying to make them feel welcome. Yeah. So
that is wonderful training.
Yeah.
And it sounds very comprehensive. Most of us moms would have to work, to really bring in all those elements.
Right.
Because when you're doing a smaller group, maybe mom can do it all. And
right.
It's a little bit more of a being thoughtful of thinking through, how can the kids help me? It may slow it down at first, but I need to teach them the tools in order to be able to cook and help in the kitchen. And one day it will make it faster. Right.
Yep. She did a great job at getting us up to speed. Mm-hmm. So it was just normal life. And it's kind of different now, thinking about, okay, my life at home with the kids, how different it is from the way that I grew up. And, okay, so I might have, if I want to teach my stepkids the same things, how would I do that? The opportunities are different now. So
yes, you're not feeding a huge group 5 nights a week.
Right.
You might already have the prep work done and dinner going to the oven when they get home from school, or, just something else is going to look a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. So that was great. I give a lot of credit to my wonderful mother for teaching me. And, she has cookbooks to prove it. So
yes. She has a very comprehensive cookbook, which is very fun.
Yes. I use them a lot these days.
Yes. I actually have one sitting on my shelf at home.
Oh,
I
good.
have looked through it numerous times
Yeah.
and have cooked some recipes out of it as well.
Yes.
And it's one thing I really like about it is that it has pretty much all the basics.
Yeah.
You know, the things that you might think I want to cook, whatever. It's not, I mean, there are some unique things, but it's a very good everyday cookbook.
Yeah. It's pretty normal. Like people with picky tastes tend to enjoy things in that cookbook.
And
except for the lasagna. Just kidding.
Some people.
Most
like
people like the lasagna.
What is really funny is that is one of the things I hardly ever made lasagna growing up because my husband also did not prefer it. And so.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. And when my kids were growing up, we hardly ever made lasagna.
I think it's the ricotta cheese for people. I've heard that. We just did I was helping out with All Souls Communion Sunday in the fall. And myself and my sister-in-law and another girl, we teamed up to make lasagna for the whole church. And it was funny because I thought, of course, again, foolhardily, I thought, people are going to love this because it's lasagna. But then we started to hear some feedback before the meal. Oh, some people are worried because they don't like lasagna.
Well, tough.
And then I went, oh,
Eat it
okay.
anyway.
There's another lasagna recipe that I hadn't made in my mother's cookbook. She has 2 of them.
Okay.
But it doesn't have the ricotta in it. It has the bechamel.
I've never done that.
It's for those who don't like the texture of ricotta, it's delicious. It's like, it's much smoother and it's the bechamel sauce. Anyways, so we ended up doing that recipe and everybody liked it.
So that's
Everybody
a bit
liked
better
it.
for people that don't like ricotta. That's good to know.
Yes, actually, yeah. So check that one out in there. Your family can test it out on your family.
I
See
can
if they'll
say,
eat it.
Surprise!
Right.
They probably would love it.
Yeah.
And then your hospitality changed, I'm sure, as you went away from the boarding house and lived on your own. You're all of a sudden single and cooking for one most of the time. When
roommates.
You had roommates.
Yeah.
When you invited people in, it was still probably not 16 people every night.
Not generally.
Not generally.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you had the tools to kind of downsize, upsize pretty easily? Was that something that came naturally to you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think early on it took me some time to figure out, how do you cook for so few people? But yeah, I got used to it and I just kind of learned my own preferences in cooking and how do you cook when you're working and you have a career. And yeah, it's a different thing to cook that way. And convenience cooking, a lot of crock pot recipes and things like that. My roommates appreciated me cooking because I really enjoyed it. Most of the time, the roommates I had were either hated cooking or didn't like it as much as I did. So I tended to do a lot more of the cooking for people I lived with.
What a blessing for your roommates, because that would be wonderful to come home and just have a hot meal in the crock pot.
Yeah.
And people to share it with.
Yeah, it was fun. We had people over, did little dinner parties and things like that. But yeah, it was a different time in my cooking era, but it was great.
And now you have stepchildren and a family of 6.
Yes.
And you feed more than that sometimes when you have people coming into your home.
Yes.
I hear from your mother-in-law that you're very good at Mexican. She has bragged on your Mexican food. And maybe some of those recipes are from your mom's book.
Yes, pretty much all of them are. So,
and you're good at breads and rolls and cooking meats. So I am so excited to hear your menu that you have coming up. So currently, if you're inviting people over, what would you serve? What would be a menu that you would pull out as one of your favorites?
So one I've done a few times, I wouldn't say I've done this so many times, but this has been in the past year or so, it's been a good recipe. It's a London broil and focaccia bread and just Caesar salad. I really like this London broil recipe for mainly the reason that, it's beef, and beef is, it just, no matter what, it always feels like, this is a special thing because we all know it's kind of spendy. And so London broil is great because it's less expensive. And if you marinate it correctly, it's delicious.
It is delicious.
It's
if you know how to
delicious.
cook it.
And it makes your guests feel like, oh wow, I'm getting a nice like steak dinner, and this is really special. And I'm thinking it's really wasn't that expensive for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the meat sales and whatnot, so I've really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Do you serve a dessert typically? And if you do, what's one of your favorites?
You know, I am not the most prepared dessert person. I would say more often than not, like if we're having a family with kids over, I'll have like cookies or box brownies. If it's like a dinner party with more just adults or something, I might do something more fancy. Like I did a creme brulee or something like that. I've only done that like one time. Yeah, I've done the creme brulees. I did that for my husband's birthday party a few years ago. And yeah, I'm dipping my toe into the land of desserts a little bit more, but it's not my field of.
It's not your forte.
It's not my forte yet.
By the time they eat this delicious meal, the main meal, they're probably just satisfied with that. And a little cookie or brownie or something on the side is perfect.
Yes.
Sometimes if you have a little bit heavier meal, you don't want a big, fancy, huge, whatever, chocolate cake.
Right. Yeah.
It's a little bit too much. So that's really a great idea too, to make things a little bit easier. If you're really focused on cooking, an entire meal, make the dessert easy. Make it something that's simple to just throw in the oven. Simple box brownies, pre-made cookies, store-bought cookies.
Yeah. My husband's not really into dessert. Mm-hmm. He rarely
and that
takes
makes
it.
a difference too.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, when we have kids around, you got to have a dessert because the kids are going.
They all have the sweet tooth.
Where is it? Where's the ice
got through
cream?
our food just for the dessert.
I thought you were a nice lady.
Ice cream is a great idea too, especially with summer coming up.
Oh, yes.
That is it's instant dessert.
Instant dessert.
You can add toppings or not. I mean, it's just not even necessary, but you could have some sprinkles or whatever your favorite toppings are. So when you're making this recipe, are there any shortcuts or time savers you might use in order to be prepared before the day of the company coming over?
Yeah, well, the nice thing about this particular London broil recipe is it is a 24-hour marinade, or 12 to 24 hours. So I like it because if I do the prep beforehand, it's going to be amazing. If I start it a day before, it's wonderful. And so preparing this marinade, it makes you feel really fancy when you make this marinade. It's not just I'll throw it all in and it's fine. It makes you feel fancy because it actually uses a mortar and pestle. Pestle? Is that how you say it?
Mortar and pestle.
Pestle? Do you say the T?
I don't know.
I feel so uncultured.
Do you? Okay, that's funny.
Oh, we got to look that up.
We do have to look it up. Okay, do a quick pause. I really do want to just see, just out of curiosity. Pestle.
It's with a T.
I think so.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Anyway.
Okay, good to know. So it's pestle, we found out. So all these spices, we got peppercorns, coriander seeds, fennel seeds, bay leaves. So those are your seeds, and you actually end up toasting some of them in a skillet, and then you toast the peppercorns. Yeah, all those, and they kind of get fragrant, and then you kind of grind them up in the mortal. I can't say it. Mortal and pestle. It just feels wrong. Mortal and pestle.
There's too many T's or something.
I feel like I have a speech impediment. And you grind them up, and then, or you could just throw them in. If you don't have that fancy thing, you could throw them in like a blender or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure that works just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But you can feel fancy with your
mortar and
with
pestle.
your mortal and pestle.
Mortal.
Mortar. Oh, this
Mortar.
says mortal on this recipe. It
does?
says mortal.
I think it's mortar.
That's what I thought so too. That's why I was looking at it thinking,
no
really?
wonder you weren't saying
mortal
it
and
right,
pestle,
because you're saying mortal like we're mortal and gonna die.
It's has nothing to do with death.
Mortar.
Yeah.
Okay, MORTAR. Mortar.
Mortar.
And pestle.
Okay, that's it's wrong. It's typed wrong on this recipe. I did not type this
really
recipe.
Funny.
Not my fault.
It's not your fault. Whoever did it was also very confused and was also saying mortal and pestle.
Yeah.
Or spell check just, snuck in and grabbed them and did whatever it wanted to.
So think about your mortality as you're grinding your spices.
Grinding the spices to powder.
Yes, this is a spiritual metaphor.
Yes, we've made it one.
So
You've never heard this in a sermon, but here it is, guys.
There you go. So, and then the rest of the ingredients are red wine vinegar, Worcestershire, garlic, fresh rosemary, olive oil, and that just, you end up poking the steak and with like your little tenderizer or a fork, and then 12 to 24 hours. And then cooking, it's the easy part, right? You just throw it on a cast iron skillet or on a grill, and then you can cook down at the end, you end up boiling the marinade that it's been in, and then you use it for like the sauce to pour on it. So it's really good. I came upon this recipe and I was like, whoa, this is
when you mentioned
good.
Being able to shop and get it on sale, how do you know what the sales are in stores? So do you go and look every time, or do you have an app with certain stores and you look at the ads, or do you get a paper in the mail? What's your method?
If I was more organized, I would do stuff like apps and get the paper. But basically what I do is whenever I'm at the store, I just go by the meat section and I check
what's on
sale. And even if I'm not there to buy meat, I buy meat sometimes and throw it in my freezer, and I say, I'm going to use this at some point. I know. So yeah,
That's a great way to do it.
Every time I'm at Winco, go check it out.
And buy ahead.
Yep. Buy things, or I buy a lot at Costco, all those sorts of things. Actually, I haven't bought London broil from Costco, but yeah.
But it's most likely there, and most likely a decent price.
Yeah. Decent. They tend to have better quality meat there, but
still be a high price.
It can be a little bit higher there. So
they
Winco,
advertise the high, like USDA Choice or Prime or whatever I don't know all the different levels.
Yes.
But so you're getting very good quality.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's a little bit pricey.
Yes.
So you do have to kind of consider what you want there versus am I going to shop in a grocery store on sale?
Right. Or like the U.S. Chef Foods, what's it called? U.S. Foods store, the chef store.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone there I haven't bought London broil from them, but I bought other meats there, like sirloin or.
Do they have sales, or is it basically like a grocery store price all the time, or how does that store
It's
work?
like you buy big pieces of meat and you can butcher them down. So like you can buy a big piece of chuck, like a chuck roll. It's very expensive, but you end up saving. If you want
amount of meat.
If you want to get into like cutting a certain thing the way you want it, or if you're willing to do all the work and freezer, what's it called? Food saver bags, those vacuum pack bags, vacuum seal. That's what I meant.
All of the other applied as well.
That's what I meant. Yeah. So that's a good place to go for meat if you're ready to invest.
Or you could buy half a cow or a whole cow.
There you go. I haven't done that yet. I feel like it's coming.
It was coming for me, and then all my kids flew the nest. And so now I have a really hard time justifying buying half a cow or even a whole cow or any part of a cow. I need people to split it with me multiple ways. Like,
let
can
me
I
know.
buy a fourth of a cow? Does anybody else want a fourth of a cow?
I bet there's people.
It actually is a very inexpensive way because the initial cost seems like a lot, but if you break it down, it's not even just breaking it down per pound. It's per cut. When I looked at it before, the price per pound that you were paying was what you would pay for ground beef.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Well, you get steaks and roasts and all kinds of cuts that are not ground beef prices in the store.
Yeah.
And it's delicious. I mean, if you work with a farmer who has pasture raised it and done all
that sounds awesome,
healthy things that you're supposed to do to make the flavor really good. My twin sister one time in Oregon, she had bought part of a cow and she made hamburgers. We visited, this was years ago. We visited and she was making hamburgers and I thought, it's a hamburger.
Yeah.
Run-of-the-mill hamburger. I mean, I know it's going to be good. She's a good cook.
Yeah.
It was the best hamburger I've ever eaten in my life. It was so good.
Really?
The flavor was just delicious. And it was because it was this, farm raised. I don't know. There's lots of listeners who are could probably rattle off all the details that make it really delicious meat.
Sure.
Anyway, so
that cow lived a good life.
It did live a good life. He was probably organic and crunchy.
Had a good family, you know.
Had, special grass that he grazed on.
Sounds like a Portland story. See, I know.
It was a Portland story. It was a delicious Portland story.
Oh my gosh.
She lived right outside of Portland and had access to quite a few. This is pre-2020. I don't know.
Yeah.
Portland's kind of gone a little
Yes, it has.
strange since 2020, but they may still have some really great cows roaming around out there if you're in the Portland area.
Yeah, they might. Oh, I had one other prep. So I was talking about prepping the London broil the day before.
Mm-hmm.
So this focaccia bread recipe I found it's been so wonderful. I wanted to start making focaccia because I saw that documentary Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw them making that bread and I went, oh, I need to have this. This looks so much better than what I have had before in the realm of focaccia bread. And so I want to get into this. And so I found this recipe. It's like the one, when you say focaccia bread, it pops up like the first thing on Google. The best, easiest focaccia bread recipe.
Probably lots of great reviews. And tons of people have made it.
Yeah. So there's two ways you can do it in the recipe. There's a 2-day, 24-hour or more way, or there's the day of version. So I started just doing the day of version where it's a like a 1.5 to 2 hour first rise, and then it's 30 minutes in the oven. It's not, it's like probably 3 hours start to finish. Mm-hmm. But the day before recipe is just as easy. It's just mixing the dough earlier and putting it in the fridge.
It's so handy to have those tips.
Right. There's no kneading with this bread. It's just like mix it up and put it in the fridge and then pull it out next day or 3 days later. It doesn't matter. But like the refrigeration of the dough, because it's something, I think it's the flavor changes, but it's such a good bread because there's all this olive oil in it. You get fresh rosemary and it's just nice and fatty,
That's amazing.
Carbs and fat. Wonderful.
How can you go wrong?
And lots of salt on top too. Mm-hmm. So I love it.
So delicious.
I love it.
Well, I will post all of her recipes on comeoverfordinner.com. She'll have a blog post. I think it's under recipes is where the blog posts are, but I'll also put it in the index under breads or beef or salad.
Great.
For her 3 recipes.
And my salad recipe is, it's not really a recipe. It's just like, Caesar salad.
Do you make your own dressing?
Oh, I have not made my own Caesar dressing yet. I get the Lighthouse, the refrigerated Caesar dressing.
I would recommend if you're going to buy one from the store, the refrigerated dressings usually taste a little bit better. Maybe it's because it's less preservatives.
They do. Yeah, they expire actually. They have an expiration date.
Right. The ones on the shelf are a little more shelf stable and have ingredients to make them that way. Yeah. So I have found that the Lighthouse ones are pretty good as well.
I love those.
Which is another time saver.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't have, you could whip up your own Caesar dressing, but this is a quick grab from the store. If you wanted to do that, go that way.
Yep.
Let's take a quick break. Are you searching for hands-on activities to help your kids explore the practical side of science? Look no further than your kitchen. Inquisicook blends food science and culinary arts into an engaging program that puts delicious food on the family table. Let Inquisicook do the teaching with lesson videos, reliable recipes, and assessment tools that put students on track for success. Their online platform is easy to navigate and optimized for mobile, so the learning experience can move from the classroom to the kitchen without a hitch. Inquisicook turns curious students into intuitive cooks, not just recipe followers. Say goodbye to the tyranny of the ingredients list and say hello to utilizing what's in season, what's on sale, or what's in the fridge. Visit inquisicook.com to view sample lessons, then check out the recipe gallery to see just how crave-worthy science can be. What is your best prep tip for having people over? Do you look for cooking inspiration in a certain spot? Do you have a shopping tip or a cleaning tip? What ways would you recommend for us to prepare?
If I haven't planned something, I definitely my cooking inspiration for whether people are coming over or they're not generally starts by me going down and looking in my freezer and saying, okay, what meat do I have? And yeah, I might have a huge hunk of meat. Okay, if I need to cook it tomorrow or in a couple days, I need to pull it out, get it thawed. I love buying lots of meat and freezing it. And yeah, just having the things on hand, like you're having your pantry stocked with the flour and whatnot. But if I know what I'm cooking already, then it's just a matter of, especially if it's a large group, okay, what can I do ahead of time? Because I've definitely done this the wrong way before, where I am just frazzled with cooking right up until the time when people are coming over, and I'm panicking in my kitchen, and I'm like, "Hey,
Sweat's
nice to see
down
you."
Your back, and you're trying to pretend you're not in a panic.
Right. I'm trying not to burn this, and I've never done this before. I'm constantly trying new recipes. I love, doing like all new recipes. I could just do that all the time, but I can put myself in a bind if I didn't plan. But I like to have things to where by the time people come, maybe I'm doing my last few steps of the recipe, and I've got just a much easier state of mind, and I'm ready to actually talk to people when they come in. And even if I'm standing at the stove, I'm ready to just welcome them. And yeah, that's the ideal, is to have thought ahead of time to go, okay, what can I chop up beforehand? Yes. And even though I think, that doesn't take much time, I can do that right before.
Well, when you add 10 of those things together, it becomes a small nightmare.
I'm always amazed at how much I think this meal, this is such an easy meal. Like, this should be no problem. Why am I making myself do this so early?
And then it takes you up to the time.
Yeah.
Or you're done, and then they walk in, but you didn't have another 30 minutes or whatever you thought you might have.
Right.
The other thing that surprises me is when people actually come in, if you're thinking to yourself, well, I can finish this and stir that and brown this. When you get to talking to people, this is my personality anyway, I don't even remember what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yes.
I mean, especially if it's 3 different tasks.
Yep.
Something's going to get left in the oven to burn. Something's going to be forgotten in the microwave.
Right.
I'm not going to have stirred something that should have really been stirred, constantly. I just want to not have to focus on multitasking when people walk in. I'm good at it when it's quiet.
Yes.
But not when I'm really trying to be thoughtful about conversation and welcoming everybody, and their kid has a need and they need to know where to put their coat and all the things.
Luckily, I have a wonderful husband, and he is ready to host people.
Great backup.
So there are times when, no matter what, like whatever recipe I'm cooking, sometimes it's just the last step that I have to do is complicated, and there's just no way around it. I'm going to be in the kitchen with my thinking hat on, and I can't talk to anybody. Like, go away.
He knows. Game on.
I say,
you're at the door.
Can you take them in the living room? But he's wonderful at hosting people, and he enjoys making a nice cocktail for people before dinner. So
that's a fun project as well. Like to not assign, but to have your husband or kids know things that they're going to do when guests arrive, and kind of have a plan as a family.
Yeah. Just getting the kids, if we've got teenagers, come out of your rooms, come on out and host the other kids that are here, or be involved. Come and help me in the kitchen if I need
Don't
help.
pretend you didn't hear the door open and close in an addition of lots of voices.
I know you did.
People are here?
I had my headphones on.
Right. I didn't hear a thing.
Right. So just, getting myself as much done beforehand is the ideal. So I can be a gracious and warm host, not a tense and exhausted host.
Yes, I concur. And also have stories from times when it was not that way.
Yeah.
I have learned a lot over the years and try to do that. Again, it says like you, sometimes you're making stuff at the very end that you do have to do a finishing touch.
Yeah.
But, then hopefully you've prepared by having the rest of your family on board with helping them go somewhere else while you do this magical finishing touch that they're going to appreciate you did because the meal is so delicious.
Right. Hopefully, yeah.
What is your best advice for showing warm hospitality to those coming into your home? How do you make them feel welcome?
I think, well, I kind of included that in my last answer. It's just, getting the members of my household involved so that I'm prepared. I'm ready to see people. My husband's really great with the pre-dinner cocktails, giving them something to have while they wait for dinner, because I don't tend to have dinner ready right when they come in, because sometimes people are late, and also just getting them warmed up to like where they're at. I don't know.
Yeah, not just come and fly into your chairs.
Right, and
We're
sit
ready.
down.
And the food's hot right now. So
Yeah.
hurry and pray, husband.
Right,
and
right.
hurry and put food on your plate.
Yeah, I don't want them to feel like, oh, you're late and the food's getting cold, So having it be sort of a little bit of a window of time where they can just hang out for a minute
Food
and
can still be in the oven.
get the tour of the house, go see the pet snake in the basement,
Oh, dear.
I know.
I might need a cocktail before going down to the basement to see the pet snake.
That's right. Yeah.
What are some of your favorite cocktails to serve?
The normal one we do is gin martinis. We like them a lot. It's a nice, refreshing thing to have. But my husband does a lot of old fashions or whatever we have on hand. Margaritas, if we're doing Mexican food, we usually have that stuff ready. But yeah.
If the kids are sitting there asking for something, do you also have juice or water, or what do you have if there's children involved?
Yeah, depending on the meal we're serving. So like we'll have like Martinelli's if we're doing like the London broil dinner or stuff like that. Or soda, we'll have like liters of soda and water, whatever they want. Yeah, I don't bring the juice out. I should bring the juice out. I have it in my fridge. I just don't even think.
I don't really think of juice either, especially at dinner time.
Yeah.
Maybe for the
Think about
tiniest
breakfast.
kids. I do too. I think of juice for breakfast. But the tiniest kids, I guess Martinelli's is like juice.
It's like sparkling fancy juice.
Right. So the littlest kids would love that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Anything sugar related.
Mm-hmm.
Sign me up. Do you have any advice for setting the table? How to make your decorations beautiful?
Well, I would say that I am a work in progress on that part. It's nice to have, dishes that match and things like that. That's, a low bar. Oh, I have white plates. Great. Okay, that's great. I have enough white plates for everybody. But when we first got married, we had my dishes from when I lived in Portland, and they were used to be big house dishes, but they were chipped and they were multiple colors. They were like gray or red. When it wasn't Fiesta ware, it was, I forget the name of it, but it has like a colored band around it. And so it was just kind of a random smattering of stuff. And we made it work. We made it like, okay, well, like, let's make it look nice on the table where we have every other is
where
gray
it
and
looks
red.
Like you meant to do it.
I
Which,
meant to do
honestly,
it.
That was a huge style for a while.
Right.
And it probably still is, the
Right.
mix and match.
Right, mix and match.
You were in fashion.
Was the chipped dishes a style?
Well, I'm still kind of holding on to that they might be, because mine have been around for quite a few years, and they're nice and dinged, because mine are square white plates.
Yeah.
And the squares with kids loading those in the dishwasher, and they're kind of heavy.
They get chipped all the time, I bet.
My word.
Yes.
So at some point I need to replace those. But
so yeah, definitely.
I just say they're well loved,
Yeah.
well used, well loved.
That's
like us as we
they're
age.
artisanally crafted and used.
Exactly.
So the dishes I have now are just, I've got, I don't know, maybe a year ago, I got a bunch at Costco, like white plates, and then I got a set of like teal. They're kind of more casual looking. I don't know. So just having matching plates is great. And I try to have fresh flowers on the table. I don't do anything too fancy with that, but I think I have a lot to learn. My wonderful mother-in-law. So I learned a lot from my mother growing up, and I still learn from her. But my mother-in-law, Brenda Carnahan, she would probably hate to hear her name mentioned on a podcast
She
so
is
much.
a star when it comes to hospitality.
She is a star, but she does not want to be a star so much. She does not want to be the center of attention.
No, she doesn't. But I have been so many times to events that she hosts at her home. She welcomes people in all the time for all sorts of different things. And I have literally told her, I hope I can be like you when I grow up.
But her tables are beautiful.
They are beautiful.
She is just exquisite with how she lays the flowers out. She has other decorations, candles and lights, and for just our family when we're having like a Sunday dinner and we come over there.
Which makes you feel so important.
Oh my gosh.
And loved.
She has beautiful tablecloths. Yeah, so I definitely say, if you know Brenda Carnahan in this town, you ask her how to decorate your table. Don't ask me.
I'll have to text her and see if she has any favorite links, like favorite places that she looks for things.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure she has, over the years, made a collection of,
right.
It does take a bit of time to collect a little stack of tablecloths so you can change the colors or different napkins. And I do have some on the shop page. People have recommended a few things from Amazon, different brands that they like. But I will have to ask her.
Yes.
So again, look at her post.
Yes.
I usually have all kinds of things on the post, and towards the bottom will be the top recommended items.
Yeah.
Speaking of top recommended items, what is your must-have kitchen item and where can we find it?
So this is a more, I guess, recent, like in the past 3 years or so. I got this at my bridal shower from my cousin Rachel, and she gave me these liquid measures that they're the OXO brand, and they're the stackable cup ones. And there's all these sizes of, like, you've got your biggest one is a cup and then your next one, but they're the liquid ones. They're pourable. So I never had that before.
And they're the bright, cheery colors, aren't they?
Cute little, yeah.
What's funny is when Nancy Wilson, her mother, was on, that was her top recommended item.
Well, I think she actually, it was my Aunt Nancy and Rachel gave that to me as one of the gifts.
I love that.
Like they had a joint gift for me because they hosted my bridal shower, and it was just wonderful. And
they're
they
so
give me a
cheery.
Nice. Oh yeah, they're so cute. But also, it's just nice when you're prepping meals and you're like, okay, I need this much rice vinegar, and I need 2 tablespoons of this, and like it needs to be all ready to go when I'm at this one point of the stir fry, and I got to throw this in, or the 2/3 cup of wine.
Because you have like 6 different cups there.
Right.
That you can use all the different sizes.
At the same time.
And they're easy to wash. You throw them in the dishwasher.
Yep.
They're they don't take up much space because they're just cylinders.
Yeah. And then the other thing is just having a prep bowls for the same reason, like having bowls that you can think ahead if you're making a new recipe and, I need to have the onions and the carrots ready to go for this particular step. I'll put them in the same bowl, and then I need to have my spices ready to go in this tiny bowl. Like just having a multiple of like metal bowls or whatever.
Yeah. What is your favorite brand?
Oh, I don't have a favorite brand. I just gotten them at I think I got a bunch of metal bowls at a yard sale,
Okay.
years ago. Just, there's tons of these and they're really cheap. I'm going to just buy them because they'll last forever. They don't need to be pretty. Mm-hmm. Just need to have a lot of them.
Yes.
So
in Costco, Sam's Club, they would sell the big ones.
Yeah.
You can also order them on Amazon.
Oh, I like the big ones too.
But they probably, I wonder, do they have other sizes as well?
I've seen at Costco, actually, they have like sets of like little, like 3 different
bowls.
sizes of Pret bowls with like a rubber bottom or silicone bottom on them.
Yeah, but yard sales, that's a great, you're
going
to find them really cheap
Yes,
there.
yes, yeah. So no particular brand, just wherever they are.
Do you have a story for us? It can be funny or sad.
Inspiring
from all of your years of hospitality.
I have a don't do this at home, kids.
Okay, that's good to know. I probably need to take notes.
Horror. So this one is actually from when I was growing up, and I was 13, and my parents, I believe, were heading out of town, and we were left at home. And I was in charge of cooking dinner for the house.
With borders?
Yes. I think it was maybe just like one night I had to cook. And, I'd cooked this recipe a lot with my mom. And so I felt really confident about it. It was like a yogurt chicken with a wild rice pilaf. And I loved this chicken. It was so good. So
Sounds delicious.
Yeah. I feel like I think I was 13. Anyways, maybe I was older. Not to shock anybody, like, oh, you got left at home at 13. There were also, boarders in the house. But I got to cooking and I realized that the chicken I had was frozen. And I had never been taught how to thaw out chicken. I'd seen my mom do it, like, oh, I'm thawing out chicken. But I didn't know what the steps were. I didn't know how to do it in a safe way. This is like pre-internet. I can't just Google this. I'm old. This was, we didn't have such wonderful tools. And my parents didn't have cell phones. I couldn't call and ask her. So I am trying to figure out on my own how to thaw out chicken. So I'm going to like taking the frozen chicken to like putting it in a bowl and pouring boiling water over it. And I tried like all these weird things like, oh, okay, now I'll put it in the microwave and then parts of it would get rubbery. I was like, what's going on? I had no idea what I was doing. But I ended up getting it to a point where I was like, okay, I think it's thawed out enough. I'm going to start doing this thing. And you know what happens when you don't thaw things out correctly?
It's raw in the middle.
It was cooked. It was cooked by the time it arrived at the dinner table.
Okay.
But if things sit at the wrong temperature for too long, which they did because you're trying to do all these wacky versions of thawing out, the bacteria grows. And even if you cook it, it's still like dangerous to eat. And I served this to the house.
And it had been out way too long.
It had been it was at the wrong temperature for too long. If you've taken a food handler's class, you know about that. Like,
chicken is
this temperature
the big
window.
One to watch.
And myself and my brother and one house resident all got like violently sick, food poisoning, and
that night.
Oh, no. And my mom's not there. I got it the worst, and I'm glad that I got it the worst. And then I think the other resident and my brother like maybe threw up once or something. I threw up like 40 times.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
And especially with not a parent not being there.
I remember just crying.
Thinking, I might need to go to the emergency room.
I mean, I didn't know. I remember after that was done, I like went down to the grocery store and got some Gatorade and like, figured out I was so hungry.
I can imagine. Well, at least you had the presence of mind to hydrate yourself.
Yes, but I do remember that I didn't want to cook chicken for a long time after that. I was always very nervous about chicken.
Oh, that is so sad.
I know. Well, that was, I was kind of a oops.
That is so hard. Well, honestly, that story brings up a question I meant to ask you earlier because you do cook a lot of meats, and I don't think we've ever talked about it on this podcast. How do you thaw big chunks of meat, especially if you haven't thought 3 days ahead?
Right. The way I do it is, if I had, which hopefully I'll get another fridge soon. I hope my husband's listening. No, we're going to get another garage. We're going to get a garage fridge because we only have one fridge. We have an extra freezer in the garage, which is great. But yeah, thawing out big pieces of meat, I would love to be able to take it out a couple days ahead and just leave it there and go, okay, the pork shoulders ready to go.
Thawing in a safe environment.
Right.
The right temperature.
But what I do now is I put it in a big bowl on the counter. Like I'll fill up the bowl with cold water if it's in a bag, and then I'll put the meat in the bowl, and then I just change out the water, make sure it stays cold. You'll have like ice chunks forming, but yeah, it's generally pretty safe. With a big piece of meat, you can kind of leave it on your counter overnight, and with a bowl of cold water and it's fine.
Because it's not warm water or boiling water.
No, it's
or
not warm water. And it's like an ice cube.
Boiling water.
Right? It's like an ice cube melting in the water, and it just melts really slow, and it doesn't get to a super high temperature, but you do have to kind of keep your eye on it so it doesn't get to room temperature.
And now we have Google, so you could Google the right temperature if you wanted to and have your thermometer there and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What about chicken? So a lot of times if we are doing chicken breasts, for instance, or a piece of chicken, what if you're pulling it out like you were in your story, and I have to cook it that night? I'm not going to leave it overnight. So would you do the same thing? Cold water?
Yep. I would do the same thing, and it doesn't take that long to thaw, like a few chicken breasts or a smaller pack of meat. Mm-hmm. You can thaw it out in a couple hours. So I just put it in a bowl on the counter and works pretty great.
Okay, good tips.
Yeah.
Yes, microwaving is usually not the best option.
No.
Maybe if it's in a dire emergency, you can change your microwave settings to different power levels.
Yes, you can. It scares me now.
Defrost, but still, it's kind of like knowing the right power level, the right time, all that sort of thing, and especially with chicken.
Yeah.
Doing that and not cooking the edges.
Where it get weird and rubbery.
Ugh. It's a little sketchy.
Yeah, it is a little sketchy.
So not a high recommend there, but if you need dinner in 30 minutes, I guess you do what you got to do.
I've definitely cooked chicken from frozen too, like throwing it in an Instant Pot. Like if you need shredded chicken, you can throw a frozen chicken breast in there. And
that is a really good tip to remember.
Yeah. Put a little water in the bottom and
pressure cook it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That can also be Googled.
Yes, it can be. And I've Googled it.
Or you can use your cell phone to call your mom's cell phone.
Yes. How do you do this?
How? We have cell phones and internet now, which is
just wonderful.
Pretty amazing.
I love it.
I kind of do too. I don't know that there are people who would want to go back to the day. I don't know if I'd want to go back to the day.
Yeah. Yep.
Without all the things, because honestly, like you were saying, you love cooking all these new recipes.
Yeah.
How did you know how to do all that stuff? Unless you'd learned one new recipe maybe from your neighbor. Right. But I would imagine, like say in the Prairie Days, well, also because there weren't big grocery stores, you're cooking the same meals and the same food over and over and over and over.
Right.
And you get good at it. I'm sure it was very delicious food, but it's kind of fun to experiment.
Absolutely.
And play with food and type in an ingredient or an idea and get new recipes.
And say, oh, I don't have this in my fridge. What can I substitute? Just stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep. And you sure couldn't be listening to a podcast and hearing a brand new menu from Michal. This all sounds so delicious that I am putting it on my menu plan.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad you took time out of your busy week to come and share with us. I'm going to post all of these recipes as well as some shop links, so check it out. Until next time, bye for now.